Good morning, Riverside Kingdom family. Good morning, Kingdom family, to everybody. Yes, you tuned in, and we are not in the living room today. We are actually back at 2625 Carsons Run Road in Aberdeen, Maryland, in the Riverside Bell Camp area, coming to you live stream from the Riverside campus, Riverside Sanctuary. We are so glad that after it's been over 90 days since any of us got to stand on this platform to do any type of ministry, and we're grateful that we're on here. I'm sure there'll be others jumping on probably later on, because we used to get on at 11. We would log on at 11, but today we're doing it at 10:30 because I've got the entire praise and worship team. I say the entire worship team. The entire worship team is here. Not all of them are on the stage. Some of them are in the congregation, and they're going to be worshiping, and we're grateful that you are tuning in. I would just say stick to the Facebook app and YouTube, or go to our website. We're going to have more information over the next couple of weeks, and we're going to slowly start to invite people and open up the sanctuary to have others come in and join us and worship with us. We're going to take it very slowly, but we do have some plans in action. We're moving forward in that. So keep praying for us that God will continue to give us the wisdom that we do this the right way. I know that many of you watching are anxious to be here. You want to be here. You want to come and worship with us. Trust me, if you could feel the energy in this room, I get what you're saying. I'd want to be here too, and I am. But we will be starting up really, really soon, but we're going to take our time with it and make sure we do it right. We don't want anybody to be sick. We don't want to expose people unnecessarily. And we also want to get you in here and get you worshiping, because we understand how critical it is to be part of a community and to be connected one with another. But you're watching us. You know, there's a lot of churches right now today. I think there's 750,000 churches licensed or registered in this country. Over 750,000 churches in this country. I guarantee you not all of them have the opportunity to be online and to be able to worship online. And have a service online, but we do, and we thank God for that. And so again, I'm glad that you're here. I'm grateful that you're here. I have no idea what God's going to do in this place. Our worship team is ready. They've been rehearsing for a couple of weeks now, so they're ready to get into it. I'm going to turn it over to them and let them just lead us. If you don't see me come back up here to preach, it's probably because I'm laying on the floor, just covered up, trying to get under the carpet. Because we get to be in a live worship service, and I'm just grateful for. And again, we're going to have you guys in here soon as well. So before we jump in and let the worship team lead us in some live worship, I just want you to prepare your hearts where you are. I know this may seem different for some of you. You might have your phone in front of you in your bedroom. You still may be in bed, some of you, but you can prepare your heart for worship. Maybe you're watching on a TV in your living room, wherever it is. I'm just going to lead us in prayer, and as I do, I just want you to get ready, because maybe it's been a minute for some of you. It's been over 90 days since we've come together and did anything like this, so maybe it's been that long for some of you, and we want you just to get ready to worship the Lord and just open your hearts up in whatever God has. So I'm just going to pray for you guys there that are watching over the live stream right now. Father, I thank you so much for such a wonderful privilege and opportunity to be able to come back into this building again to worship you, God, to be able to stand on this platform with this worship team that loves you with all their heart, God, to be able to stand in this sanctuary with the volunteers that have come to help us, God. We're just so grateful for that, Lord. I'm grateful for everyone watching us today over YouTube and over Facebook and over our website. I'm grateful, God, for everyone that's tuning in, everyone that's watching. And I just pray, God, that during this time of worship, that our hearts will be wide open to you, wide open to just lift you up and to give thanksgiving to you, to express thanksgiving to you with music in the background, with live music happening, with our worship team leading, God. We're just so excited about that. And Lord, I just pray that you touch every person watching today, every heart that is watching today. I pray, God, that you would use us mightily to minister to everyone watching by television today, God. Everyone watching over the computer screen, everyone watching on their phone. Use us to minister to them. And when today is done, God, and we get ready to walk away from here, we'll be sure to give you all the glory, all the honor, and all the praises that's due to your name. Thank you, God, for keeping your hand upon this family. Thank you, God, for watching over us. And today we just want to express our gratitude to you with worship, with song. We thank you and we love you in Jesus' mighty name. Thank you guys so much for watching, for tuning in. So I'm just going to turn it over to Jamal and the worship team, and I'm just going to let them lead us in worship. And then if the Lord lets me, I'll come back in a few minutes and maybe share some things with you later on in this service. God bless you guys. Let's all worship the Lord together.
So I remind my soul to bless you. it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender all. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your
favor, may His favor.
May His favor be upon you and around you.
Generations and your family and your children and their children and their children.
May His presence
Go before you and behind you and beside you, all around you and within you. He is with you.
in the morning.
In the evening, in your calling,
I was reminded of Jacob and Esau and how Jacob went and tricked his brother and stole his birthright because Esau was he stole his blessing from Isaac. And what that tells you is the blessing, a blessing, is important. It's valuable. It's heavy. It's weighty. It's so important that somebody will go and steal it from somebody else. It's just words. But that's how a blessing is. And I think the reason it got me so much is because my dad passed away in 2009. And he's a good man. He was a bishop in our church. Taught me all the things I need to know. But when he passed away, I don't remember him ever giving me any blessings. So when I heard the song, it just tore me up. Because a father's blessing, a mother's blessing, you'll hear those words as you go through life. And it'll make you do things that you don't want to do, but you know you should. I hear the words of my mother when I make decisions. I hear the words of my father when I make decisions, and I remember the things they told me. So I just wanted to say this song, it's not just a song. It's not just a nice song with a nice melody and words. Think about what the words are. And if you've never had a parent who was godly or gave you a blessing, as a dad, I'm going to stand right here, and I just want you to think, I'm putting my hand on your head, and I want you to close your eyes, and we're going to sing this song again. And I'm saying these words to you, that God goes before you for the rest of your life. His face will shine upon you. He will walk with you in grace and mercy. Everything you need will be there when it's supposed to be when you do his will. I ask that he stand with you, he go with you, he guide you, he protect you in all the things that you do. And not just you, but your children and your children's children and generations to come. So that everyone who carries your name or carries your blood, carries his blood, walks in his family, will be blessed and know that he is with them. Thank you.
May his favor be upon a thousand generations, family and their children, and their children, and their children. His praise That marriage, you turned it around. You take
what the enemy meant for
that
evil,
brokenness,
and you turn it for good.
how'd you turn
You
it?
turn it for good.
That broken heart, can you turn?
You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good.
That relationship, God, you take.
You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good.
Say again, God, you take.
You take what the enemy meant for
nature. It's who you are. See, you are good. You're good. You are good. You're good. You are You are
I've got a river of life flowing out of me. Makes the lame to walk and the blind to see. It opens prison doors, sets the captives free. I've got a river of life flowing out of me. You are good. You're good. Oh.
hope that to some degree you're feeling whatever it is that we're feeling in this room, that you're feeling it wherever you are. Just an absolutely amazing, it's like heaven just kissed earth. That's what it feels like. It feels like God just bowed down and kissed this place. Such a very noticeable, very tangible, very weighty presence that's in this room right now. And there's, maybe a handful of us in this room, but just feeling and sensing that wonderful, wonderful presence of God is. So listen, I'm just going to exhort for a minute. I don't think I'm going to preach, although I could, or maybe I will. I don't know. I haven't done this in a while, so I need grace. I believe it was the second song you were singing about the blessing from one generation to the next generation, and then Rick came up. For those of you that listen, God is moving in the building when Rick comes up on the platform and takes a microphone into his hands. For those of you that are tuning in that don't know Rick, you saw him standing up there with gloves. It wasn't so that he was protecting himself from COVID-19. Rick is our drummer who likes to hide in the back corner and play the drums. He's not one that wants to be seen or noticed. I tried to get him. His wife has been on live stream with me, and I've tried to get him to come on live stream with me, but he wouldn't do it. And just because that's not his deal. So when he walks up here, then it's like when my dad starts to talk. My dad, myself, and my mother will, we could talk about anything and for long periods of time. But if Dad starts to talk, then you're going to listen because it's very rare. And so, but there was something that Rick was talking about that kind of sparked something in my heart that I wasn't even really thinking about at all for today. But I think I want to share it, just a thought, maybe like a devotional for you that are tuning in and watching, and just give you something that I'm hoping, honestly, I'm hoping that what I say provokes you. It provokes me. I hope it provokes everyone in the room and everyone on the platform with me as well. There's a story in the Bible about a man named Jairus. And some of you may be familiar. Y'all that are here can sit down. Those that are in the room can sit down. If you're standing up watching at your house, you can sit down too. Be seated. You're familiar with the story about the woman with the issue of blood for 12 years. In Mark's account, there is a story that the woman with the issue of blood appears sandwiched between another story, and it's a story about a man named Jairus. Jairus is a ruler in the synagogue. He's a ruler in a church. He's a church leader, a pastor, a bishop, an elder, a deacon, whatever title you want to hang on him. The Bible says he was a ruler in the synagogue, so he was someone substantial. Said that he ran to Jesus and fell at his feet in Mark chapter 5. Said that he ran to Jesus and fell at his feet and begged him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter lies at the point of death. Come, lay your hands on her that she may be healed and that she will live." And so Jesus went with him, and a great multitude followed with him and thronged him. And that's his introduction to Jairus, this ruler of the synagogue, this pastor, this bishop, this deacon, this elder. Church leader has a daughter at home who is sick to the point of death. Runs and finds Jesus and falls at his feet and begs Jesus to come and heal his daughter. When you were singing that song and when Rick was up here exhorting, the thing that hit me in my spirit was, what is it that you're giving yourself to that won't awaken another generation? What is it that you're giving yourself to that has no power that cannot heal the next generation? Now, I'm very aware of what's happening in the news. I'm very aware. I don't have social media. I try not to follow it. So I'm very aware, though, however, of what's happening in our current events. I'm well aware of the coronavirus. I'm even aware of who it's impacting right now. It's mainly impacting the next generation, the 20 and 30-year-olds. I'm aware of the tension that's in our culture surrounding the races. I'm very aware of that. And when I do watch the news and see footage of it, it's the next generation. And so I couldn't help but, when Rick was up here exhorting and we were singing that song, to be challenged in my spirit or pricked in my heart that what is it that you're giving yourself to that has no power for the next generation? Because here is a man who is leading his church. I bet he loves God. I bet he loves God's people. I bet he's committed and devoted, and I bet he's all those things. Here he is, a lover of God and a lover of his people, doing the best that he can to lead this synagogue. And yet whatever he's given himself to wasn't enough to be able to bring his daughter back or to heal his daughter. She hadn't died yet, but she needed healing. And there was nothing, and I'm guessing he was probably praying. These were very religious people. I mean, they were very religious people. No doubt, Lewis, they were praying. He was seeking. He was, whatever it was he needed to do, lighting candles and reciting different types of prayers. He was doing what he could, but whatever he was giving himself to. And here's the tension in the text for me. The tension in the text for me is that the whole synagogue idea was God's idea to begin with. This was God's plan. And I'm looking at that going, well, wait a minute. This was God's plan, and God's plan doesn't seem to be providing for his daughter that is sick and possibly going to die. Creates a little tension, doesn't it? Because we've been giving ourselves to something called, that I refer to as the American church culture. We've been giving ourselves to that. The people that are in this room with me are very dedicated and they love God. I know that there would have been others here too if we had opened up the doors. But none of these people are being paid to be here. It's not like they're getting hazard pay because they decide to come out during the COVID-19 and lead in worship. They love God. I love God. I love God's people. So my devotion to God isn't the issue. My commitment to God isn't the issue. What God has planned, the organization, the church, what God has built is the synagogue was his idea, and yet it looks like whatever his idea was didn't seem to be working. And that creates tension in the text for me. And the thought that I had was this, and just bear with me for a minute. Sometimes too much of a good thing can become religious. Too much of doing the same thing over and over again and can create a religious spirit or invite a religious spirit onto God's people. Bear with me for a moment. I'm going to take you somewhere and show you some things and hopefully teach you something. When the children of Israel had a famine in the land, they went down to Egypt because it was in Egypt, if you remember the story, they sold their brother Joseph, Israel's children. They sold their brother Joseph into slavery, and he ended up, through a host of events, the second in command at Egypt, just under Pharaoh. He was Pharaoh's vice president. And so he was in charge of divvying up all the food and all the resources. Israel, the family that sold him into slavery, where he ended up in prison and in Potiphar's house and eventually over into the palace, was in another land, and a famine hit that land, and they were in search of food, and the food that they needed was down there in Egypt. Them not knowing that their brother Joseph had risen to second in command, they go down to Egypt to find the food. Joseph reveals himself, tells them about, who he was and how he ended up there, and provided the food for them and was able to feed them and sustain them. That was a good thing. The problem was they stayed too long. They stayed too long, and after 430 years, that Pharaoh, or after so many years, that Pharaoh died off, and the next Pharaoh came up, had no idea who Joseph was, and none of these other people, and ended up enslaving them and making them his slaves. And so it started off as deliverance because it was done too long, ended up becoming bondage. What started off as deliverance and what started off saving them ended up enslaving them. It ended up, and so that's what I mean when I say we've done it in churches. We would find a song to sing, and if it hit real good and hit real hard, we'd come back and sing that song the next Sunday and the next Sunday and the next Sunday, hoping to recreate that atmosphere where it hit and landed real hard. And we'll keep doing it. And there's nothing wrong with us being able to sing a song that we enjoy or that we like. But if you keep doing it too many times, what we end up doing is creating sacred cows out of things. And we say, well, that's a song, we always got to sing that song on Sunday. That song has to be done every Sunday at 10:15. We have to sing that song. And so it becomes a sacred cow. And if somebody rises up and says, hey, let's not sing that at 10:15, let's sing another song, then all hell breaks loose in the church and we lose our minds over that. Well, why? Because, we end up embracing that, and it becomes a very religious thing to us and dear to us. And so we end up giving ourselves to things like that have no power for another generation. And I just started thinking about that, Jamal, and I don't know where the Lord's going to take us with this thing, but I just really feel like that there are things that the American church culture that we have given ourselves to that have no impact on another generation. And I'm just not interested in doing that anymore. I want to impact the next generation. Not only that, but this guy, Jairus, Karen, he went and found Jesus to bring Jesus back to his daughter. I know Father's Day was last Sunday, and we celebrated Father's Day. There's something about Jairus, though, that I can't just overlook, and that is this, Marvin. Number one, when his daughter got in trouble, this daddy who said, what I've been giving myself to as a leader in this church have no power to heal her, to set her free, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go find somebody who is. Whew. And so there might be some dads watching today. There might be some moms watching. You're watching today, and maybe our church is not open, so you can't come here. But I want to tell you, if you're someplace where, you might have to go and look for presents, because the thing that you've been giving yourself to at where you're going, maybe grandmom and mom, maybe they liked it, maybe it was good for them, but you've been drying up and dying on the vine. Listen, I'm telling you, he might be telling you to go out and find something else. He might be telling you to go out and search for something else. Here was Jairus, who said, I don't have anything that can heal her. Let me go find somebody who can. Knew about Jesus and went after presents and invited presents back to the house. Good God Almighty, I want to run in this building right now. So the thing that I want to give myself to is this. I want to go, if I can't get it, if it's not here, I want to be able to find presents and bring presents back. If I got to lock myself in a closet in order to encounter him, that I can bring him back here. Because I'm looking around this room, and there's some young people in this room, because their parents sing on the worship team. There's young people in this room, and I don't want them to be just so, and listen, they're fascinated with TikTok right now. I'm fascinated with TikTok, thanks to Jordan, who introduced me to TikTok. I've got this hopeless addiction to TikTok. But I don't want them to just be fascinated by TikTok. I want them to be fascinated with Jesus. I want them to find something in Jesus that'll entertain them, that'll capture them. These videos capture our interest, and I want them to I want Jesus to capture their interest. I want to bring something back to the house that'll capture them. And so, oh man, I almost started preaching there for a minute. I haven't done that in a while. It scared me. Where did that come from? He just realized that I've been giving myself to something that hasn't been working. And even though it was God's idea, listen, God sent Jesus to bring a renewal, to bring What's the word I'm looking for? Y'all can chime in anytime you want to. I know I'm preaching, but I'm so used to having conversations with people. This is different for me. I got used to preaching for a while. I couldn't have a conversation. I started having conversations. I had trouble preaching. But he sent Jesus to restore, to bring about something that looked a little different than what it used to be. He sent his son, and that was the problem that the religious people had an issue with. Was, they just weren't prepared for that. They weren't ready for that. They weren't accepting of that. And here come Jesus, who come teaching and preaching and demonstrating the kingdom of God and the love of God. And so he goes out and he goes after Jesus to bring Jesus back to the house. When sometimes it doesn't work, go after presence. Get presence back in the house. Get presence back. Bring presence in. Now, Jesus agrees to go with him. And as he gets ready to go with him, he's interrupted by a woman who grabs the hem of his garment, who had been struggling herself with an infirmity for 12 long years. And he stops to address that situation. He pauses because he felt virtue leave his body. He stops, crowds of people around him. He's on his way to this church leader's house to heal his sick daughter when he's interrupted by a woman who grabs on to the hem of his garment. And the Bible says in Mark chapter 5 that while he was speaking, or that he felt virtue leave out of his body. So he has to stop and deal with this. And as he stops to deal with this, here's what ends up happening. As Jesus was still speaking about, I felt virtue leave my body, somebody touched me, who touched me? While he was investigating that, this person comes from the church leader's house and said, your daughter is dead, don't trouble the teacher anymore. Who? If I'm Jairus and I hear Jesus say, I feel virtue leave my body. If I'm the woman with the issue of blood, I'm shouting and playing my tambourine all over the church because healing virtue left his body, and I'm the only one that was grabbing onto the hem of his garment. So if I'm the woman and he says, I felt virtue leave my body, I'm shouting my face off. But if I'm Jairus, I'm like, hold on a second. You agreed to come to my house and heal my daughter, and you already said you felt virtue leave your body. Is there any more in there? Because I need it. And I think what ends up happening sometimes to too many of us is that, I used to say this around here, and of course we haven't been here in 90 days, so I can't say it, but maybe when we get back, you'll hear me say this some more. I'm convinced that however it is, that the next miracle or breakthrough that you need might be contingent on the way that you respond to somebody else's breakthrough and miracle. And so I know if I'm Jairus, I'm losing my marbles over here because I'm like, hold on a second, how much more healing do you got in there? Because we need it at my house. I hope you didn't give it all up. Since there are people in here, and I can say this, and I actually get to see it, touch your neighbor and tell them there's plenty of Jesus to go around. If you're watching by television, slap the person in the room next to you. Even if you got to get up and walk into the next room, just smack them and tell them there's plenty of Jesus to go around. And so I just want to get to the place that we're giving ourselves to something that'll be meaningful to another generation, that they're not just fascinated by TikTok, but they're fascinated by the Son of God. Not only that, but I want to be able to be the dad that is humble enough that if I don't have it, I'll run until I find it. I'll run and find Jesus. If I got to fall and humiliate myself and be humble before him, I'll fall at his feet to get him to come. Whatever it takes to get the presence to come with me. If I got to fall down, I'll fall down. If I got to cry, I'll cry. If I got to sing, I'll sing. If I got to dance the two-step, I'll dance. Whatever it takes to get presence to come. And not only that, but if somebody else, if I'm on my way And my breakthrough's coming, and Jesus is my, and he's already said, I'll come and I'll meet with your daughter, I'll heal your daughter, and somebody else along the way gets a breakthrough or gets a blessing, then maybe what we need to get better at is instead of being jealous and saying about those people, you're undeserving of that. They didn't deserve that. If they only, preacher, if you only knew what I knew about them, you wouldn't be praying for them like that. If you only, they shouldn't have got that blessing. They shouldn't have got that. If we'll lose that attitude and adopt an attitude that when somebody else gets it, we clap until our hands turn purple. We yell until we lose our voice. We ought to get better at celebrating for other people like we would if it happened to us. I wonder what the church would look like if we started celebrating every time God did something in somebody else, whether we liked them or not, whether we agreed with them or not, whether we ate lunch with them after church or not. Regardless of that, if we just got really good at celebrating for them. I just wonder what the church would look like if we just learned to celebrate one another and celebrate what God did in your life. Even if it might be something small, learn to celebrate that. Learn to give glory and praise over that. I'm just becoming increasingly convinced that my next breakthrough might be tied to or locked up in with however I celebrate for somebody else. So maybe if it's not happening to you, maybe it's because you're not celebrating it when it happens to somebody else. Come on. If you sow to the wind, you'll reap the whirlwind. Come on, sow in blessing and sow in thanksgiving and sow in gratuity and sow in gratefulness. And celebrate when something good happens to somebody else. Said that when he ended up getting there, and I'm about done. I'm just going to fast forward and get through all the. So when he got to the house, this is interesting to me. I'll just read it from the Bible here. As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, I should probably comment on this. It said, while Jesus was saying, I felt virtue leave my body, this person comes and tells the man, your daughter died. Don't bother the teacher anymore. I just want to talk about this for 1 second because I believe it was I understand the teaching and why we do it. I get the teaching and why we do it, but I think sometimes we embrace it too much and we make it too religious, and that is this. It's interesting to me, Hassan, that when this person came and told Jesus and told this man, your daughter is dead, Jesus allowed this person to tell the bad news to this man. Now, the man must have had some degree of faith to go find Jesus, to bring Jesus back. And Jesus was not concerned that the bad report was going to jack this guy's faith up. And so Jesus let the bad report come. And I know what we do in the church because I've pastored people like this, and it drove me crazy. And that is this. They would say, Pastor, whatever you say, don't confess over yourself that it'll drive you crazy because then you'll end up crazy. And I'm like, baby, the crazy train picked me up a long time ago. Been on this train for, how long have I been pastoring y'all? 15 years? Been on this train for 15 years. And so my point is this. My point is, that we teach this be careful what you speak. And I understand it. Trust me, I do. Because listen, if you're constantly repeating these things over and over again, whatsoever man thinks in his heart, that he becomes. And you'll start believing some of the stuff that comes out of your mouth. But don't get all hung up on the fact that you've got to start becoming like super religious over this and be afraid. See, the problem I always had with it was it started feeling like bondage when people say, if I said, boy, I really have a headache right now. People say, don't say that over yourself. I said, but I really do have a headache right now. Stop saying that over yourself. Denying the reality of the fact that I have a headache is not means that I have or lack faith in any way. Just because I confess that this is a symptom that I have doesn't mean that I don't have faith. And what we would teach in the church, and I've taught it myself, is that be careful. Don't say that, because if you say that, then it doesn't sound like you have faith. And so I'm just saying that, if I say, well, listen, you can say you have a headache And that doesn't mean you don't have faith. It just means that you're not willing to deny the reality of the fact that you have a headache. You could say, I have a headache, but I also serve a Christ who has the ability to take this headache and heal it. You could have a diagnosis of cancer in your body. And I know people, good church people that love Jesus, that would say, well, I'm not going to confess to anybody and let anybody know I have that. You can say that you have cancer, but say, but I also know the one who has the ability to heal cancer. That's what faith is. Faith isn't denying the reality of a symptom. Faith is saying I might have it, but I know a Christ who can heal it. That's faith. And so I just find it interesting that Jesus never tried to stop the report from coming. He just let the report come because it wasn't going to affect what Jesus was getting ready to do. And so he ends up at the house. Now watch this. This is interesting. It said that they came to the house of this church leader, the ruler of the synagogue, and they saw this group of people who wept and wailed loudly. And when he came in, he said to them, why make this commotion and weep? This child is not dead, but sleeping. Watch verse 40. And they ridiculed him, but he put them outside, took the father and the mother of the child and those who were with him, which was Peter, James, and John, and entered where the child was lying. I so love that one little verse 40. I love that verse, Jamal. I love that verse, Lewis, Rick, and Marvin. I love it. Jesus gets to the house, and you have these people here. I never noticed this until recently. And by recently, I mean like right now. Recently. Let's talk about this faith thing for a minute, Michelle. Check this out. I don't know if you ever noticed this. There were these people in the Bible, they were professional mourners. And they would hire these people to come when somebody died. Am I still on the camera? Is somebody running the camera? Sorry. They would hire these professional mourners to come in and cry and wail and mourn when somebody died. Hold on a second. When Jairus left to go find Jesus, she was sick. She was still alive. By the time Jesus gets back there, not only did she die, but now these professional mourners showed up. And I'm like, there must have not have been a whole lot of faith in that this girl was going to make it because you already had them on speed dial. Hey, get ready. We don't, any minute now. It's just about there, so just get ready. We got you on speed dial, so just hurry up and get over here. You know, when we send up the pigeons, just know that when the pigeons go, I don't know how they communicated, but it was like, hurry up and get over here. And so by the time Jesus got there, not only was she, and I'm thinking, well, my point is this, you don't have to have perfect faith. You just have to know where to find presence. Your faith doesn't have to be perfect. Just know where to get presence. And so Jesus shows up, and you got these mourners that are wailing. And I mean, they're professionals. Means they're really good. Here's a professional bowler, which means he must be really good at it. But that's a professional. So they're really good at this mourning. They're really good at wailing and moaning and crying. They're really, really, really good at it. And Jesus walks in and he's like, what's with all the commotion? And it's like, well, I don't know if you noticed our shirts, but Professional Mourners Incorporated. It's just what we do. We show up and we mourn. It's what we get paid to. And it's like, I'm not Jesus, but sometimes I like to play a narrative in my head. And the narrative in my head is like when Jesus shows up and he goes, look, there's all these professional mourners and weeping in here, mourning in here because of this death. And Jesus shows up and is like, what's this all about? And they're going, well, this is what we do. And Jesus like, that may be what you do, but do you know who I am? I am the resurrection and the life. He who was once dead, if he believes in me, shall. So she might have been dead while you were here. But when I walked into the room, See, when before I got here, death was in the room and you were grieving and mourning. I get that. But when Jesus shows up, when life walks into the room, all that stuff has got to go. And Jesus put them out and got rid of them. Why? Because they were no longer necessary, because the life giver just came into the room. I just feel to say this to somebody watching, or maybe somebody in this room. If you start noticing the people around you get smaller and the circle around you smaller and there's not as many people hanging around you, it might just be because Jesus is like, they're really not necessary anymore. Maybe there was a time when they were necessary, but when you got a hold of the presence of God and presence showed up in the room, what they might have been necessary for, their services are no longer required or needed. They're no longer necessary in your life, because everything you need, everything you desire, everything you want is found in the kingdom. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And when Jesus showed up, said, your services are no longer required or needed here. You're no longer necessary. And what we try to do is we try to hang on to people that are no longer necessary in our story and in our journey. And sometimes you just got to have the goodbye anointing. Say, hey, look, you know, when you were here, you were the best mourners. You cried louder than anybody else. Your face looked uglier than anybody else's. And you know, there was more fluid coming out of your face than was necessary, but you're a professional, I get that. But now that Jesus has arrived, we no longer need you. Thank you. You're dismissed. It just feels good to me to say it. I don't know how it feels to anybody else, but for me, it just feels liberating. And see, there are some people that, you know, they're necessary for a part of your journey. But if you try to drag them and keep them, listen, there was no way Jesus was going to be able to do what Jesus wanted to do so long as the mourners and the grievers were there. He had to put them out and say, you're no longer needed here. And then he took the father, he took the mother, he took the parents, and he took the apostolic, and he said, this is what is needed. The crowd might not be quite as big, but we have everything necessary to bring about a miracle. We have everything necessary. Maybe we don't have the professionals anymore, but what we do have is all that is required to bring another generation back to life. I wish I had somebody in here that would help me. So we might not have as many, it might not be as bright, it might not be as professional, but what we do have will bring the next generation back. And he took the apostolic, and he took the parents, and he went into that room, and he spoke to that girl, and that girl got up, and that girl started to breathe, and that girl was alive, and she lived. And I want to tell you, I just feel like that's where God's positioned us, and that's where God is posturing us. And I understand that over Jamal, you may play something softly. I haven't said that in 90 days. That felt good too. And listen, that doesn't mean that what you see up here isn't professional. It's just not professional in the sense that we've become so proficient at it that God's no longer needed or required here. See, there's a difference between being professional and being excellent. I'm okay with being excellent. I'm not okay with everybody trying to be professional. And I think what we're starting to see and sense in here is people that have a heart for God and a love for God, and the people that just want nothing but the presence of God, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get presence. And it's really not even for us per se, it's for the generation that's behind us that's fascinated with all the things that millennials are fascinated with. And that doesn't mean stop doing TikTok, Caleb Lawson, because I enjoy his TikToks. Caleb's like, this pastor's awesome. What's your handle so I have everybody follow Caleb Lawson? What is it? Look, don't be all shy and bashful now. I know how TikTok works. What is it? Caleb Lawson 10. Go look him up on TikTok. That's one of my spiritual grandsons. So I'm going to boast about him a little bit. mind's racing right now because I'm thinking about the woman with the issue of blood. She suffered with it for 12 years. I believe Jairus' daughter, in another verse or another account, said that she was 12 years old. I had a revelation a while back on this story, and that was the woman with the 12-year infirmity was symbolic of the church. And that Jesus had to make sure that the church got healed before the next generation could be brought back to life. As the church has been hemorrhaging for 12 years and done everything they know to do, but still just hemorrhaging. And I believe if we'll just embrace, if we'll just grab the hem of his garment, if we'll just grab onto presence and let that virtue fire and course through the church and bring healing to the church, then the next generation will experience an awakening, a revival. And as much as I want to be a part of that, more than anything, I want the next generation to have such an awakening and such a revival that if I miss it, I miss it, but I don't want them to miss it. And so maybe what God is doing is bringing healing to the church. Maybe we've been locked down it didn't surprise God. This corona didn't surprise God. I think maybe God's just bringing healing. I know there's a lot of naysayers and doomsayers that know God's bringing judgment. And I think God's bringing healing. I think he's going to heal the church. And when he heals the church, I think if we let him get a hold of us, or if we would just get a hold of him, get a hold of the him. If we get a hold of the him, then the next generation doesn't have to go look for other things that are inferior to him in order to make them feel like they have a cause or to make them feel like they have a purpose. There's another generation that's I don't find any answers. And they're out there trying to force things to happen and make things happen. And they have the energy and the passion and the zeal to try to make it happen. And they're chasing after things that are just inferior, but if we just introduce them to the one who is superior, Let the him heal us, and it'll awaken another generation. And then maybe your kids don't have to deal with racism. How cool would that be? Or how about your grandbabies? What about your boys? They won't have to be out trying to fight for equality. Maybe law enforcement will be looked at as a position of honor. No, honor law enforcement. I think one of the biggest issues we have in our country is that, but not law enforcement has them. Honor. That's another sermon. It was actually some of the TikTok videos that he made. That broke me and provoked me. And I just say, here's a generation that I don't want to lose. I want them to be what do y'all call it? Be woke. But it's going to take us going after presents. It's going to take leaders, church leaders, and daddies, mommies to go after the presence of God. That's what it's going to take. And not just, listen. Sometimes we put more value on the political party and our vote. And I'm not saying that votes aren't important. But if we were as passionate about our prayer as we were about our president, our political affiliation, if we were as passionate about prayer as we were about these other things that we're passionate about, I wonder what we would leave to the next generation. I wonder what they would experience. I wonder what they would see. I wonder what they would have. That's it. I just wanted to exhort for a minute. It's been a long time since I looked at people like this. I know it's not a lot, but still. When we do get to finally open up the church and we start inviting people back, we'll be able to, those of us that are here will be able to look around and go, man, the church is just really growing right now. Look at all the people that are it's just really exploding, man. There's revival in this church. So when I first started coming here back in June, there was only 15 of us, and now look at us. We'll have an incredible church growth campaign. I am very appreciative of all the worship team and media team that, listen, I didn't really have to make them come out and do it. I have a feeling they were coming whether I was going to do anything or not. They just wanted to worship. Rose and Nikki were coming to church no matter what. They were not going to miss. And Jamal's been practicing on this keyboard, and he wanted to get in here and play it through this sound system. He's had it at his house. And I want to hear it in here. And the rest of the singers, and I know there's more I said the whole worship team's here. There's actually way more than that to our worship team. They're just not all here. But we'll see them up there. I'm grateful for all of you guys, for Mary and Shane, for keeping the property in the building. Even though nobody's been here for 90 days, you guys done an amazing job keeping it looking nice. I thank you. I appreciate you very much. I know that sounds like a lot of people in here clapping, but it's not. There's only a handful of us. It's not that many, really. We are not officially opened yet, but we are moving forward. You'll see more on that. Thank you for tuning in and watching, though. We will be getting you guys here real soon to participate and be a part of this. Be sure to give. Yes, JoJo, I got it, baby. JoJo's here for one reason, had nothing to do with worshiping Jesus. It's make sure you take the offering. Got it, JoJo? Make sure you give. Be faithful. Be faithful. You can text to give. You can mail. JoJo, can they tie it to the leg of a pigeon and send it in? Would that be all right? Okay, however. That's 2 pigeon references in one sermon. You're welcome. I don't know why, just there. And but feel free to you can mail it in. You can they bring it by the church? They can bring it by. Shane's always here working. Bring it by the church and give it to Shane. You can slide it under the door. I don't know how we get it, but there's a mailbox. Put it in that. You can give on our website. You can give on our app. You can text to give. So just continue to be faithful. Continue to be generous. Keep an eye out on social media for what's upcoming. We're really very fluid right now. And when I say that, it just sounds really fancy to say we're just flying by the seat of our pants, which means we're really fluid right now. and we're working through this, and we're trying to, there's not a plan for all of this, being in quarantine and how to, and I want to do everything. I'm desperately wanting to be in here and worshiping, but I'm also wanting to adhere to the law, to Governor Hogan, and I want to adhere to that. I don't want to, do anything that's outside of that. Above and beyond that, I want to protect all of us too, and so I want to do that. So be on the lookout of what's going to happen over the next few weeks. And we'll make sure that it gets posted on our social media and on our website. Thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in and being a part of it. Share this, going back and watch it over again. Thank you for everybody that came out to be a part that's on the worship team and media team, and some of your family members. You guys are awesome. I appreciate all of you. And that's all I have, unless y'all have something. Y'all good? I love it. I love y'all. God bless you guys. We're gonna go ahead and log out, but I just want to say love y'all, and I'll be looking for you on social media again real soon. God bless you guys. Have a